When I was a child, I always thought of my grandmother, Aurora, as an open book, her pages filled with stories of laughter, love, and lessons learned. But as I grew older, I began to realize that many chapters of her life remained deeply hidden, tucked away in the folds of her gentle smile and the warmth of her blue eyes, which sparkled like summer skies. Those eyes held secrets, stories untold, and a wisdom that could only be revealed in quiet moments shared over cups of tea, the scent of cinnamon and vanilla swirling softly around us, wrapping us in a comforting embrace. I remember the afternoons spent in her cozy kitchen, where the sunlight danced through the lace curtains, casting delicate patterns on the worn wooden table. It was there that I learned the art of baking, how she would mix flour and sugar with care, her hands deftly kneading dough as she hummed old melodies, her voice a soothing balm to the world outside. Every hug she gave felt like a healing potion, each one reassuring me that all was right, that I was cherished and safe. But as I grew, so did my understanding of the shadows that lingered just out of sight. I began to sense that her life, so seemingly perfect, was layered with complexities that I was yet to comprehend. There were hints of sorrow in her laughter, a weight in her gaze when she thought no one was watching. I often wondered about the stories she never told, the secrets she kept close to her heart. It was after her passing that I stumbled upon the first clues to these mysteries. An old wooden box hidden behind blankets in her closet, a treasure trove waiting to be uncovered. My heart raced with anticipation as I pulled it out, feeling the weight of its history in my hands. The box was weathered, its surface smoothed by time, and as I opened it, my breath caught in my throat. There, nestled among faded photographs and delicate trinkets, lay our diary, a worn leather cover, cracked spine, and pages filled with faded ink that seemed to whisper her thoughts, longing to be heard. As I held the diary, a rush of emotion swept over me. Shock, confusion, and a deep longing to understand the woman who had shaped so much of my life. How could this simple book contain the essence of her being, the stories of her heart, the truths that had been shrouded in silence? I felt a profound sense of loss, not just for her, but for the understanding I had missed while she was alive. The realization that the woman who had been my anchor, my guiding star, had lived through trials I could hardly fathom, began to stir something deep within me. With each page I turned, the diary revealed fragments of her youth, tales of the forbidden love, of resilience in the face of adversity, and of sacrifices made for the sake of family. There were secrets that echoed through time, stories that spoke of a long-lost treasure, not in gold or jewels, but in the bonds of love and the scars of pain that shaped her existence. I could feel her presence, as if she were sitting beside me, urging me to listen, to understand the depth of our shared lineage. My hands trembled as I traced the faded ink with my fingertips, feeling an unbreakable connection to the past. It was as if the diary held the keys to a world I had always been a part of, yet had never fully known. Each word was a thread, weaving together the tapestry of her life and the lives of those that came before her. I realized then that this discovery was not just about uncovering her secrets. It was about embracing the legacy of love, sacrifice, and resilience that coursed through our family. The emotional weight of this journey began to settle into my bones, a quiet anticipation blooming in my chest. I understood that to delve deeper into this diary meant to confront the shadows that had lingered in my grandmother's life, to embrace the imperfections of our family story. I felt a calling, a need to share these revelations, to honor her memory and the lives she had touched with her strength and wisdom. So, dear listener, I invite you to stay with me on this journey of discovery. Together, we will uncover the extraordinary stories that lie within these pages, the tales of love that defied the odds, the sacrifices that shaped destinies, and the hidden truths that connect us all. Join me as I share every word she left behind, a testament to a life lived with passion and purpose, and perhaps a guiding light for our own paths ahead. In the heart of the late 1930s, Willow Creek was a canvas painted with the softest hues of rural life. The sun would rise gently over the rolling hills, casting a warm golden light that danced across the fields of corn and wheat. The air was filled with the sweet scent of wildflowers and the earthy aroma of freshly turned soil, mingling in a comforting embrace. Birds sang their morning melodies, and the distant sound of a rooster crowing announced the start of yet another day in this tight-knit community. Children's laughter echoed down dirt paths, weaving through clusters of wildflowers and tall grass, while mothers exchanged news at the well, their voices a blend of warmth and familiarity. Amidst this serene backdrop lived a young woman named Aurora. With her dark hair pulled back in a simple braid and a smudge of dirt on her cheek from the morning chores, she moved with an ease that belied her quiet introspection. Aurora often found herself wandering through the fields, her heart alight with dreams that stretched far beyond the horizon. She was a girl of imagination, her mind a treasure trove of stories and possibilities. Each whisper of the wind carried tales of faraway lands, and every fluttering leaf seemed to beckon her toward adventure. Her days began with the rising sun. She would wake before dawn, the soft light spilling into her small room, illuminating the pages of the books she cherished. With each turn of a page, she sailed through the skies on the wings of her imagination. From the bustling streets of the cities she had never seen to the enchanted forests, the magic thrived. Reading was her escape, a gentle rebellion against the confines of her small town, where everyone knew everyone else, and the rhythm of life was both predictable and comforting. Aurora's family was the heartbeat of her existence, providing a solid foundation of love and support. Her father, a stern yet caring farmer, wore the weight of the world on his shoulders, his hands calloused from years of toil. He instilled a strong work ethic in his children, reminding them that hard work was the backbone of their family's survival. Her mother was a quiet presence, tending to the home with grace and warmth, her hands skilled in the art of baking bread and preserving fruits from their orchard. Aurora admired her mother's quiet strength, yet sometimes wished for a glimpse of the woman's own dreams, tucked away beneath layers of duty and expectation. Then there was Thomas, her older brother, whose spirit soared as high as the crows that circled above their fields. He was a dreamer, forever gazing at the sky and sketching plans for flying machines on scraps of paper. Thomas spoke of flight with a passion that lit up the dim corners of their farmhouse, igniting a spark of possibility in Aurora's heart. She often wondered if he would ever leave Willow Creek to chase those dreams, or if he too would remain tethered to the land they called home. Lily, her younger sister, was the poet of the family. With a wild shock of curls and an infectious laughter, she painted the world with words, capturing the beauty of their surroundings in verses that danced off the page. Aurora cherished Lily's whimsical spirit, often finding solace in the way her sisters could express what she herself felt, but struggled to articulate. Together they would lie on the grass at night, gazing up at the stars, their conversations weaving through the constellations that seemed to whisper secrets of a universe. Life in Willow Creek flowed like a gentle stream, punctuated by the seasons and the traditions that shaped their existence. Mornings were spent in the fields, afternoons at the one-room schoolhouse where laughter mingled with the lessons of arithmetic and history, and evenings were a tranquil affair, filled with the aroma of dinner wafting through the air. As the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange, the family would gather around the table, sharing stories and dreams, their voices a soothing balm against the quiet of the night. Yet beneath this pastoral peace, Aurora felt a restlessness stirring within her. It was a soft yearning that would occasionally bubble to the surface, a whisper in her heart that urged her to explore the world beyond the familiar hills and fields. She would often stand at the edge of the creek, watching the water flow, its path determined yet forever changing. And she would wonder about the lives of those who live beyond the borders of Willow Creek. The idea of adventure beckoned her, a siren song that promised something more than what her life had to offer. As she sat beneath the old oak tree, a favorite spot where the sunlight dappled through the leaves, Aurora would close her eyes and imagine herself on a ship sailing across vast oceans, or wandering through bustling markets in far-off cities. The dreams were vivid, alive with possibility, yet they were always accompanied by the weight of her love for her family. She cherished the moments spent with them, yet there was an undeniable tension between the life she yearned for and the life that was expected of her. The world outside was changing, though the echoes of those changes had yet to touch the shores of Willow Creek. News traveled slowly, carried in quietly by the whispers of travelers and the occasional letter from relatives in distant towns. But even in the quiet, Aurora could sense a shift in the air, a subtle reminder that life was not as still as it seemed. With each passing day, the horizon seemed to beckon her, a tantalizing promise of freedom and exploration, drawing her closer to the edge of a new chapter that lay just beyond her reach. As the days turned into weeks and the seasons danced through their familiar cycle, Aurora found herself caught in the delicate balance of belonging and longing. Her family's love anchored her, yet her spirit ached for the unknown. The diary she would later leave behind would tell the stories of her heart, chronicling the moments that shaped her and the dreams that dared to whisper in the night. But for now, in the quiet embrace of Willow Creek, she was simply Aurora, a girl with a heart full of dreams, standing at the threshold of change, waiting for the world to awaken around her. The air in Willow Creek had always been filled with the scent of wildflowers and the sound of laughter. But as the summer of 1939 began to fade, a different kind of whisper began to weave through the town. It started subtly, a low murmur that crept in through the cracks of the sun-soaked afternoons. News of war, distant yet insistent, began to seep from radios and newspaper stands, stirring for unease that settled like dust in the corners of the familiar streets. Aurora often found herself sitting on the porch, her fingers tracing the worn wood of the railing, as she listened to her father's low voice, mingling with the news from the small radio in the living room. "War in Europe," he would say, shaking his head. "It's a worry the way, but it feels closer every day." Her mother would nod, her brow furrowed with concern, stirring a pot of soup as the aroma filled their home, a stark contrast to the chilling stories that swept through their conversations. Her brother Thomas, however, was captivated. "This could be our chance," he declared one evening, his eyes shining with a fervor that Aurora struggled to understand. "An adventure glory. They'll write stories about us." He was captivated by visions of heroism, while Aurora felt a weight of dread settle in her stomach like a stone. The innocence of her dreams was beginning to crack. The world was no longer a simple place filled with stories of love and laughter. It was a battlefield unfolding before her eyes, and she was caught in the middle, unable to reconcile her yearning for adventure with the reality of conflict looming just beyond the horizon. As days turned into weeks, the collective anxiety of the town grew palpable. Conversations became hushed, and the laughter that once rang through the streets turned into a cautious silence. The local shopkeepers exchanged glances filled with unspoken fears, and even the children's games took on a grim seriousness, as if they were imitating the battles they heard about on the radio. Aurora watched as her parents exchanged worried looks over the dinner table, their hands clasped tightly, as if they were holding on to the last threads of safety in a world that was unraveling. Amidst this unease, a figure emerged from the shadows of the changing landscape. One crisp evening, as dusk settled softly over Willow Creek, a young man in a crisp military uniform arrived in town. He was unlike anyone she had ever seen. There was something calm and watchful in the way he carried himself, a quiet strength that both intrigued and unsettled her. His name was Elias, and the moment he stepped into the small general store where Aurora was helping her mother, she felt a spark, an unexplainable connection that sent a shiver down her spine. Elias moved with purpose, his gaze scanning the shelves before meeting Aurora's. In that instant, she could see the weight he carried, a burden that mirrored her own growing anxiety about the world outside. His eyes held secrets, perhaps stories of his own. When their hands brushed as he reached for a box of matches, the world around them faded, leaving only the electricity of that moment. It was an encounter that felt laden with unspoken words, a promise of something more profound than the simple exchange of pleasantries. As the days passed, he became a regular sight in Willow Creek. He would often visit the store, exchanging pleasantries with her mother while stealing glances at Aurora. They would share fleeting smiles, each one tinged with a mix of hope and uncertainty. She found herself drawn to him, not just by his presence, but by the stories he seemed to carry with him. Stories of a world torn apart by conflict, yet somehow still filled with the possibility of love. But beneath that budding connection lay a sense of danger that Aurora couldn't shake. Elias spoke little of his past, often evading her questions with a gentle smile that left her longing for more. There was a depth in his silence that both intrigued and frightened her, a reminder that the world was shifting beneath their feet. As the news of the war grew ever closer, so did the realization that their connection was not merely a romance blooming in the shadows of uncertainty, but a tether to something far more complex and perilous. One evening, as they walked along the edge of the creek, the sun setting in a riot of colors, Aurora turned to him, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. "What do you dream of, Elias?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. He paused, the weight of her question hanging in the air, his expression unreadable. "I dream of a world where we can be free, where love isn't overshadowed by fear," he replied, his gaze intense. "But dreams often come with a price, don't they?" In that moment, Aurora understood that his dreams were entangled with the war that was creeping closer, and that her own dreams of peace and simplicity were in jeopardy. The warmth of the day faded, replaced by a chill that mirrored the uncertainty of their future. She felt a stirring within her, a realization that her life was no longer defined by the cozy corners of Willow Creek, but by the vast, unpredictable tapestry of the world outside. As the first sounds of distant thunder echoed in the sky, Aurora recognized the storm brewing, not just in the heavens, but within her own heart. The arrival of Elias marked a turning point, a collision of innocence and reality that would forever alter the course of her life. With each passing day, the war loomed larger, and she could no longer ignore the shadows it cast over her dreams. The fragile piece of her childhood was slipping away, replaced by a longing for freedom, for understanding, and for a love that could withstand the tempest approaching on the horizon. In the quiet embrace of twilight, the world seemed to hold its breath. Aurora often found solace in the hidden corners of Willow Creek, where the whispers of the wind through the trees echoed her own unspoken thoughts. It was here, beneath the sprawling branches of an ancient oak, that she and Elias would meet in secret. Each rendezvous was imbued with a fragile intensity, a delicate dance of hope and fear. The air between them crackled with an electric charge, as if the very fabric of their dreams intertwined. As Elias spoke, his voice was a soothing balm against the backdrop of uncertainty that loomed over them. "Aurora," he began, his gaze steady yet vulnerable, "I've seen the darkness of this war, and it terrifies me. But being here with you, it feels like a flicker of light in a world gone dim." His words wrapped around her heart, a warm embrace that chased away the chill of isolation. They shared stories under the canopy of stars, their laughter mingling with the rustle of leaves, but beneath the surface, an unspoken tension simmered. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the landscape, Elias's expression shifted. The gravity of his next words weighed heavily in the air. "I need to tell you something important, something that could change everything." Aurora's heart raced. She sensed the storm brewing within him, a tempest of secrets and revelations. Elias took a deep breath, his brow furrowing with the weight of his confession. "I'm not just a soldier, Aurora. I deserted the Nazi regime. I was a scientist, working on something that could change the course of this war. There's an encryption device, an artifact that holds power beyond imagination. My mentor, a master clockmaker, hid it here in Willow Creek before everything spiraled out of control." His voice trembled, laden with urgency. Aurora's mind raced as the implications of his words sank in. "Why are you telling me this?" she whispered, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and fascination. "Because I need your help to find it. It's hidden beneath the town's old church, in a labyrinth created by my mentor. If it falls into the wrong hands, it could spell disaster." His eyes searched hers, pleading for understanding. Aurora felt a rush of emotions, fear, confusion, and an undeniable pull toward this man who would become her beacon in the darkness. The atmosphere in Willow Creek had shifted in recent weeks. What was once a quaint town filled with laughter and light had morphed into a landscape of hushed conversations and wary glances. Aurora noticed the strangers that lingered too long in the market, the way their laughter felt hollow, almost predatory. Rumors of Nazi agents hiding in plain sight whispered through the streets like a chilling breeze. The warmth of home was fading, and the comfort of familiarity was being replaced with an air of paranoia. As night descended, Aurora and Elias ventured towards the old church, the moon casting ghostly shadows on their path. The stone structure stood solemnly, each crack and crevice telling stories of time long past. Together, they pushed open the heavy wooden doors, the creak echoing like a warning. Inside, the air was cool and damp, the scent of aged wood filling their lungs. Aurora felt a shiver run down her spine, a premonition of the danger that lay ahead. "Do you really think it's down here?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper, as they descended the creaking staircase into the depths of the labyrinth. Elias nodded, determination etched on his face. "I have to believe it is. My mentor wouldn't have hidden it without reason." As they moved deeper into the shadows, the flickering light of a lantern illuminated the walls, revealing intricate carvings that seemed to dance to life. Aurora's heart swelled with a mixture of fear and exhilaration. This was no longer just a secret meeting. They were embarking on a quest that could change their lives forever. With each step, Aurora felt the weight of her choices pressing down on her. She was no longer a mere observer in this unfolding drama. She was becoming an active participant, her heart entwined with Elias's mission. The thought that she might be thrust into danger terrified her, but the thought of losing him was even more daunting. In the silence of the labyrinth, moments of vulnerability surfaced. Aurora glanced at Elias, his brow furrowed in concentration, and felt an overwhelming surge of affection. "You're brave," she murmured, her voice steadying in the darkness. "I can't let you do this alone." Elias turned to her, surprise flickering in his eyes. "Are you sure? This could be dangerous." "I've never been sure of anything in my life until now," she replied, her voice firm. "I won't let fear dictate my choices anymore. I want to be by your side, whatever it takes." In that moment, they stood on the precipice of change. Aurora's heart swelled with a newfound resilience, fueled by love and a sense of purpose. She was ready to embrace the unknown, to step into a world that was no longer defined by the comforts of her previous life. As they reached the junction in the labyrinth, a sense of urgency enveloped them. The air felt charged with an impending revelation. "This must be it," Elias said, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. Together, they pushed aside a heavy stone, revealing a hidden chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. Inside, artifacts of a bygone era lay scattered, but one object caught their attention, a small, ornate box that pulsed with an energy of its own. Aurora felt her breath hitch as Elias approached it, his hands trembling with a mixture of awe and fear. "This is it," he whispered, his voice barely audible. "The device." But as they moved closer, a chilling realization settled over them. Time was running out. The shadows around them felt alive, thickening with the presence of unseen highs. Aurora's heart raced, a mix of excitement and dread flooding her veins. The world outside was encroaching, and the stakes had never been plainer. In her diary that night, Aurora poured out her thoughts, her fears, and her hopes. Each word was a catharsis, a release of the tension that had built within her. Beneath the weight of the revelations, she found strength in her vulnerability, the ink tracing the contours of her heart. No longer would she be just a spectator in her own life. She was ready to fight for love, for freedom, and for the future she dared to hope for. As she closed her diary, a quiet defiance settled within her. Aurora was ready to face whatever came next. Her heart intertwined with Elias's, their fates now bound by a shared mission. Together, they would navigate the labyrinth, danger, and desire, discovering hidden truths in the shadows of war. As Aurora and Elias descended deeper into the labyrinth, the air grew thick with a chill that clung to their skin, sending shivers down Aurora's spine. The flickering lanterns cast long shadows that danced against the rough-stone walls, illuminating remnants of a forgotten time. The intricate gears and cogs of a clockmaker's artistry now gathering dust. Each step echoed with a haunting rhythm, a symphony of anticipation and unease. They moved cautiously, the darkness swallowing their whispers as if the very walls were holding their breath. Elias reached for her hand, his grip firm yet reassuring. "We're close, Aurora. I can feel it," he whispered, his voice barely above breath. The urgency in his eyes mirrored her own, a shared understanding of the weight resting upon their shoulders. They ventured further into the unknown, their hearts pounding with a mix of fear and wonder. The prospect of what lay ahead filled Aurora with both hope and dread, knowing that the artifact could shift the course of the war, but also aware of the dangers lurking in the shadows. Just as they reached a heavy stone door engraved with cryptic symbols, a distant sound shattered the stillness, a heavy boot thumping against the earth. She would not let his sacrifice be in vain. Aurora knew she had to honor him to protect the truth they had fought for. She would carry his memory with her, a silent promise that echoed in her heart. In the days that followed, Aurora poured her soul into her diary, each stroke of the pen a testament to their love, their shared dreams, and the burden of loss that now defined her existence. The pages filled with emotion, capturing the essence of what had transpired within the labyrinth. It became her anchor, the sanctuary where she could revisit the moments of joy and pain, and a reminder of the legacy she now bore. As she wrote, Aurora felt the weight of her grief begin to transform. She was no longer merely a victim of circumstance. She was a guardian of their story, a keeper of secrets that would shape the generations to come. With each word, she vowed to protect the truth, to ensure that Elias's sacrifice would never be forgotten. In those pages, she found not just solace, but the strength to continue, to embrace the future with the memory of love guiding her way. The diary became a beacon, illuminating the path forward, a testament to the enduring power of love, loss, and the courage to face whatever lay ahead. Aurora was forever changed, and her journey had only just begun. The labyrinth had felt like a living thing, a dark, twisting serpent that had swallowed her whole. Aurora stumbled through its amp corridors, the cool air wrapping around her like a shroud as the echoes of her heartbeat thundered in her ears. The artifact, a heavy piece of metal adorned with strange engravings, felt like a lead weight in her hands. It was all she had left of Elias, and yet it felt like a curse, a reminder of the sacrifice he had made to save her. Each step she took felt heavier than the last, her body moving on instinct, her mind a fog of shock and disbelief. When she finally emerged into the light of day, the sun seemed too bright, too vivid, as if mocking her grief. She shielded her eyes, blinking against the brightness, and for a moment the world felt surreal. A painting blurred at the edges. The familiar string of Willow Creek loomed before her, but they felt foreign, haunted by the shadows of what had transpired beneath the church. She stumbled home, the weight of her loss pressing down her chest with a force she could hardly bear. Inside the small, modest house that had always been her sanctuary, a silence was deafening. She closed the door behind her, sealing away the world outside, and leaned against it, her fingers trembling as she slid down to the floor. The tears came then, unbidden and fierce, crashing over her like waves. She pressed her palms against her face, trying to quell the sobs that racked her body. Elias was gone. The realization cut through her like a knife, sharp and unforgiving, leaving a gaping wound in her heart that she feared would never heal. In that moment of raw grief, she felt utterly alone. The world continued to spin. People continued to go about their lives, and yet her universe had collapsed. She grabbed her diary, the pages filled with dreams and whispered hopes, and opened it to a blank page. Words spilled forth, jagged and unrefined, as she poured her heart onto the paper. Each stroke of the pen was an attempt to make sense of the chaos inside her, to transform the heartbreak into something tangible. Elias, she wrote, my heart is shattered. I don't know how to go on without you. The days that followed were a blur. The town mourned the loss of a beloved son, but they didn't know the truth. They spoke of Elias as if he'd simply vanished, an accident, a tragedy that could be explained away. To them, he was just another name on a list of casualties, another ghost, haunting the memories of the living. But Aurora knew better. She carried the weight of his sacrifice, a burden that felt too heavy for her fragile shoulders. In public, she wore a mask of composure, nodding along as others shared their condolences. While inside, the storm of her grief raged on. Her family noticed the shift in her demeanor. the way she seemed to drift through the days like a shadow. They offered her gentle words, concerned glances, but they couldn't grasp the depths of her sorrow. They couldn't see the truth she held so tightly, the secret that gnawed at her insides. As they gathered around the dinner table, laughter and chatter filling the air, Aurora felt like an outsider, trapped in a glass box while the world continued without her. The laughter echoed hollow in her ears, a painful reminder that life was moving on and she was left behind. The burden of secrecy weighed heavily on her soul. Each night as she lay in bed, the darkness pressed around her, suffocating in its silence. She would curl up with her diary, poring over the notes Elias had left behind, searching for meaning amid the chaos. His thoughts were a lifeline, guiding her through the fog of her grief. "We must protect the truth," he had written, "for it is in the truth that we find our strength." Gradually, the sharp edges of her pain began to dull, morphing into something else, an ember of resolve flickering within her. It was barely a spark, but it was enough to begin pulling her from the depths of despair. He knew she couldn't let Elias's sacrifice be in vain. The mission they had set out on together had not ended with his death. It had only just begun. Late at night, she would slip out of bed, the house silent as she crept into the small study. The library was dimly lit, the air thick with dust and memories. She began to conduct her own research, poring over books that spoke of history, of cryptography, and of the device that had now become her responsibility. Each page she turned felt like a step toward reclaiming her purpose, a way to honor Elias and the love they had shared. Despite the exhaustion that weighed on her, she felt a flicker of something new, a sense of direction. The confusion that had once clouded her mind began to clear as she immersed herself in the knowledge, seeking answers to questions that had haunted her since that fateful day. The world outside might have been moving on, but she was no longer merely a bystander. With every word she wrote in her diary, every fact she uncovered, she was transforming from the girl who followed into the woman who would lead. And as she sat in the quiet of the night, surrounded by books and memories, she began to feel the stirring of a new identity take root within her. Aurora was no longer just a grieving lover. She was becoming a guardian of their truth, a protector of the legacy they had forged together. The journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, but she was ready to face them head-on, armed with the love and strength that Elias had instilled in her. The shadows of her past whispered of pain, but they also spoke of resilience, and it was that resilience that would guide her forward. Leaving Willow Creek felt like stepping away from a familiar warmth into a cold, unwelcoming embrace. The city loomed ahead, vast and impersonal, its streets bustling with hurried footsteps and distant echoes of laughter that only amplified her sense of isolation. Aurora found herself submerged in a sea of faces, each one a reminder of her solitude. She settled into a modest apartment on the edge of downtown, its walls thin and creaking, and the sounds of the city filtering in like whispers of a world that thrived without her. Each day, she wandered through the labyrinth of libraries and archives, seeking refuge among the dusty tomes and yellowed pages that held the secrets of the past. Clutching Elias's notes and the artifact, a small, intricate device that had once felt so heavy, she scoured every volume that might unveil its purpose. As she pieced together the fragments of knowledge, the initial understanding of the artifact transformed into something far more significant. It was not merely an encryption device. It was an intelligence tool, capable of decoding enemy transmissions and revealing patterns that could shift the tides of war. The weight of this realization settled heavily upon her shoulders, igniting a flicker of determination in her heart. Aurora's transformation began subtly, born from necessity and the haunting memory of Elias. In solitude, she honed her observational skills, learning to read the world around her with a keen eye. Days blurred into nights as she studied coded messages, deciphering their meanings with growing confidence. She learned to navigate the bustling city streets with caution, her senses heightened, every shadow a potential threat. When she felt eyes on her, she would slip into the crowd, her heart racing, but her resolve only strengthened. One afternoon, while seated in a quiet corner of the library, she intercepted a coded message left behind by a careless researcher. The words danced in foreign script, but Aurora's newfound skills allowed her to unravel its meaning. A pulse of excitement surged through her as she pieced together the implications, information that could be vital to the resistance. In that moment, she felt a shift within herself. The grief that had once consumed her began to recede, replaced by a quiet strength that whispered of purpose. Yet the shadows lurked ever closer. Aurora could sense the danger in the air, an ever-present tension that gnawed at her resolve. She would often catch glimpses of figures lingering too long in her periphery, their gazes heady with intent. The anxiety coiled in the pit of her stomach. But she pressed on, driven by the memory of Elias and the cause they had pledged to uphold. One evening, as dusk fell over the city, she noticed a man watching her from across the street. His posture was too rigid, his eyes too intent. The instinct to flee surged within her, yet she forced herself to remain calm. She turned her back to him, feigning interest in a shop window, her heart thudding loudly in her chest. As she glanced sideways, she caught his reflection in the glass, a predator observing his prey. With a deep breath, she moved with purpose, walking away from the danger, but every step felt like a thread pulling taut, ready to snap. In those moments of tension, Aurora's emotional endurance was tested. Loneliness seeped into her bones like the chill of the city air, and the exhaustion of her secretive life weighed heavily on her. Yet she persevered, drawing strength from the love she had for Elias and the mission that was now her own. The world outside continued its frenetic pace, indifferent of her struggle, but within her a fire was igniting, one that could not be extinguished. With each passing day, Aurora transformed further, becoming someone who moved through the world with purpose and stealth. She learned to blend into the background, gathering information with a casual air, her mind constantly working to connect the dots between what she learned and what she needed to know. Each small victory, an intercepted message, a successful evasion, built her confidence, and with it, her resolve to honor Elias's legacy. Aurora became a guardian of secrets, a quiet sentinel in a tumultuous world. She found solace in the pages of her diary, where she poured her thoughts and fears, documenting not just her discoveries, but also the unwavering love she held for the man who had sparked this journey. The art of writing became a ritual, a way to tether herself to her past while forging a path into an uncertain future. As the city continued to pulse with life, Aurora walked its streets with a quiet determination, her heart beating in rhythm with the mission that now defined her existence. She was no longer merely a grieving young woman. She had stepped into a role that demanded courage, intelligence, and grace under pressure. The shadows of war loomed larger each day, yet within her, a sense of purpose flourished, guiding her steps as she prepared to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the depths of her heart, she carried Elias's memory, his dreams, his fears, and the love they had shared. It was this bond that fueled her transformation, propelling her forward as she navigated the treacherous waters of espionage. Aurora was ready to embrace the shadows, to wield the artifact with care, and to become the leader she was always meant to be. The fight for freedom and justice awaited her, and she would not falter. As the war began to draw to a close, a quiet tension filled the air, a silence that had been long awaited, yet felt foreign after years of chaos. In those final months, I found myself enveloped in a poignant mixture of relief and sorrow. The artifact that had once been a burden on my heart transformed into a beacon of hope. It guided me through darkened paths, allowing me to decode enemy communications and unveil their hidden operations, often in ways that left no trace of my involvement. Each message I deciphered became a small victory, a way to honor the memory of Elias and all those who had fought for freedom. The surrender came with an unexpected stillness. I remember the hushed whispers of disbelief, the tears of joy, and the bittersweet reality that so many would never return home. I stood in the shadows, a silent witness to the end of a conflict that had claimed so much. My heart was heavy with the faces of friends and comrades lost, yet in that moment of silence, I felt Elias close to me, his spirit woven into the very fabric of what we had fought for. With the war behind us, I yearned for a life far removed from the clandestine operations that had dominated my days. Returning to Willow Creek felt like a calling I could no longer ignore. The familiar landscape, with its gentle hills and whispering trees, promised solace and healing. I envisioned a life dedicated to simplicity and purpose, the stark contrast to the shadows I had navigated for so long. In Willow Creek, I found ways to contribute to my community, helping families affected by the war rebuild their lives. I spent hours teaching children, sharing stories of resilience and hope, and instilling in them a sense of courage that I had learned from my own trials. The laughter of children became my balm, washing away the remnants of fear and despair that lingered in my soul. I dedicated myself to fostering community resilience, ensuring that the lessons learned through hardship would not be forgotten. The artifact, once a tool of war, was carefully preserved in a music box that sat atop my dresser. Each time I opened it to gaze at the delicate piece, I was reminded of my journey, of the sacrifices made and the love that still burned bright within me. It was no longer a reminder of the battles I fought, but a symbol of the strength I had discovered within myself, a testament to the legacy of Elias and the hope we have shared. As the years passed, I found myself writing less in my diary. The words that once poured out in a torrent of emotion now flowed gently, like a soft stream reflecting the tranquility I had finally found. The entries became calmer, filled with reflections on love and loss, woven with gratitude for the life I had built. I had made peace with my past, with the love I had lost and the memories that shaped me. Slowly, I transformed into the grandmother that you remember, dear one. My hair, once dark and tumultuous, now flowed like silver threads, shimmering with the wisdom of years lived fully. I embraced the quiet grace that comes with age, a serene light in my eyes that spoke of battle fought and the gentle power of enduring love. You see, my past shaped me, but it no longer controlled me. I learned to cherish the moments of stillness, the laughter shared over warm cups of tea, and the stories whispered under the starlit sky. The quiet strength I possessed became a guiding light for you, a subtle reminder of the courage that lies within, often hidden beneath the surface of ordinary lives. As I look back upon those days, I am filled with a deep sense of reverence for the life I lived and the legacy I leave behind. Because in the small acts of kindness, the moments of connection, and shared laughter that we find our true purpose. The extraordinary can indeed wear the face of the ordinary, and it is in this truth that we discover the richness of our existence. Through the pages of my diary, you begin to understand the quiet power behind my gentle voice. My calm presence, often mistaken for simplicity, was forged from extraordinary courage and resilience. I wish for you to carry this understanding close to your heart, for it is a legacy built not on grand gestures, but on the strength of love and the beauty of compassion. In the end, as the sun sets on my days, I hold close the memories of our shared past, the stories of those who came before us, and the hope that the future will carry forth. I hope you see that a life well lived is not defined by the accolades we receive, but by the love we give and the connections we nurture. Thank you for listening, for understanding the weight behind my words, and for recognizing the extraordinary in the quiet moments of life. As I sit quietly in the fading light of the evening, a gentle breeze caresses my face, and I find myself reflecting deeply on the hidden diary that has changed everything for me. This diary, once merely a collection of pages, has transformed into a mirror of Aurora's soul, revealing the intricate layers of her life that I had never truly grasped. Each word written in her delicate script now resonates with the weight of her sacrifices and the quiet strength that defined her existence. It is more than a historical document. It is a key to her private truth, a glimpse into the heart of a woman who navigated the storms of life with grace and resilience. Reading her thoughts has reshaped my understanding of who Aurora truly was. The woman I knew as my grandmother, with her gentle laughter and warm embrace, now emerges as a figure of profound complexity. I recall the stories she would tell, weaving together fairy tales and metaphors that danced around the edges of reality, cloaked in innocence. But now, those stories take on new meaning. They were not mere fables. They were coded reflections of her extraordinary experiences, subtle hints of the battle she fought and the love she offered unconditionally, often hidden beneath layers of pain and sacrifice. In my childlike innocence, I saw only the whimsical narrative she spun, unaware of the profound truths they held. Her tales of courage and hope were not just figments of imagination, but echoes of her own life, rich with struggle and triumph. As I sift through these memories, I find a bittersweet contrast between the simplicity of my childhood understanding and the depth of revelation that now washes over me. The wisdom she shared, once taken for granted, now feels like a treasure trove of insight, illuminating the path I walk today. Aurora's legacy is not encapsulated within the artifacts she left behind, or even in the diary itself. It is woven through the quiet resilience she embodied, the love she poured into every interaction, and the strength she imparted through the mundane moments of life. She taught me that true courage often goes unnoticed, hidden in the small acts of kindness, the unwavering support, and the steadfast hope that she instilled in those around her. It is in these subtle gestures that her spirit lives on, a testament to the power of an ordinary life lived with extraordinary purpose. As I consider my own struggles, I find a parallel between Aurora's past and my present. The lessons she imparted, now echoing through the pages of her diary, remind me that I am not alone in my journey. The challenges I face resonate with the resilience she demonstrated, and in reflecting on her experiences, I find a deeper understanding of my own path. The diary serves as both a bridge and a guide, connecting generations across time, reminding me that our stories intertwine in ways they may not immediately recognize. In the stillness of this moment, I experience a catharsis that allows me to honor Aurora's truth. It is not merely about knowing the facts of her life, but embracing the essence of her being. Her journey deepens my understanding of life, love, and legacy. I feel a profound gratitude for her presence in my life, for the wisdom she shared, and for the invisible threads that tie us together across generations. There is a universal message in her story, one that resonates within the hearts of all who dare to listen. Each of us carries hidden stories, layered with complexities, joys, and sorrows. Sharing these narratives, just as Aurora did, quietly and carefully, has the power to change the lives of those who follow. It is a reminder that we all have the capacity to leave a legacy, not through grand gestures, but through the quiet strength of our lives. As I close the diary, I'm filled with a sense of calm inspiration. The lessons learned from Aurora's life will guide me as I continue to navigate my own journey. I invite you, dear listener, to consider the legacies in your own families, the hidden stories waiting to be uncovered. Listen deeply, for within those whispers of the past lies the power to connect, heal, and inspire. Embrace the quiet power of love and resilience that flows through us all, and carry that wisdom forward into the world. Aurora's life was a quiet testament to resilience, a tapestry woven with threads of love, sacrifice, and hidden strength. She was not a woman who sought the spotlight or recognition. Instead, her heroism lay in the small, everyday choices she made. Choices that often went unnoticed. Through the trials of loss and the weight of grief, she transformed her pain into purpose, nurturing the lives of those around her. Her love for Elias, though steeped in sacrifice, was a beacon of hope that illuminated her path, guiding her through the darkest of days. She became a pillar of strength for the children she taught, imparting lessons not only in academics, but in the art of resilience and the power of kindness. As I reflect on Aurora's journey, I realize that her story is a mirror, reflecting the hidden strength in ordinary lives. Many of us have someone like Aurora in our own families, quiet heroes who endure in silence, whose sacrifices often go unacknowledged. They are the keepers of wisdom, the guardians of love, and their legacies are felt in the gentle touch of a hand or the soft whisper of encouragement. Aurora's story reminds us that the most profound impacts often come from those who do not seek accolades, but instead choose to love fiercely and live with purpose. Discovering Aurora's truth has altered my understanding of the past, gifting me with a deeper appreciation for the present. I see now that her experiences, the challenges she faced, and the wisdom she imparted are not merely stories of hardship, but are instead threads that weave through the fabric of our lives, connecting generations. Her diary, once a hidden relic, now stands as a testament to the power of vulnerability and the strength that arises from embracing our truths. In reading her words, I feel a sense of gratitude wash over me, a calm acknowledgement of the life she lived and the legacy she left behind. If Aurora's story resonated with you, I invite you to reflect on your own lives and the quiet heroes within them. Please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel, as your support allows these stories to reach others who may find solace in them. Share your own story or memories in the comments. We can create a community of reflection and connection, honoring those who inspire us through their hidden strength. As we close this chapter, I leave you with a question to ponder. What secret do you think Grandma Aurora held dearest to her heart? Or perhaps has someone in your life ever surprised you with their hidden strength? Let us carry forth these reflections, honoring the legacies of those who came before us and embracing the connections that bind us together. In sharing our stories, we find healing, understanding, and a shared humanity that makes life all the more beautiful. Thank you for journeying with me through Aurora's life. May her spirit encourage you to seek out the quiet strength within yourselves and those around you.